The night was an oppressive black curtain drawn tightly over the moonless sky of New Beijing when the scream pierced through the silence. It was a sound that could only mean one thing: terror. A creature howled back, a guttural roar that reverberated with power and malice, as if challenging the very heavens to intervene. Inside an ancient, stone-walled compound hidden behind a thick forest of aging trees, young Zephyr Wu stared through the dusty window pane with wide eyes, his heart pounding against his ribcage. The scream had been followed by a flurry of swift footsteps that barely registered on his ears as more than the occasional rustle of night creatures. Then came another sound, a sharp metallic clink, then the ominous sound of a blade being unsheathed. Zephyr's hand moved instinctively to his side, where a small dagger lay hidden beneath his cloak. He was alone in the compound, save for the fire crackling in the hearth and the shadows dancing around him. The walls of the shelter were lined with artifacts and ancient scrolls, remnants of his ancestors' days as guardians of the lunar cycle. But tonight, it felt like more than just history was at play. The air turned cold, and a chill ran down Zephyr's spine as the door creaked open slowly. He could see movement out of the corner of his eye. Footsteps approached, hesitant yet steady. The figure that entered was shrouded in darkness, barely visible beyond the firelight, casting long shadows along the walls. "Zephyr," a voice called out, soft yet authoritative. It was Mira, one of the 6 lost lunar wolf girls he had taken under his wing when they first appeared near his shelter, each more mysterious than the last. Is it over?" "No," Zephyr replied, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of danger. "Stay hidden." Mira's figure retreated back into the shadows as another roar echoed outside. This time it was closer. The creature seemed to be circling them, testing their defenses. Zephyr clenched his fists, prepared to fight if necessary. "Who is that thing?" Mira's voice trembled slightly, her presence lingering in the darkness like a specter. Zephyr shook his head, his jaw tight. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not here for us. At least I don't think so." But as he spoke, a sudden flash of movement caught his eye. It was like looking through a veil of mist. The world seemed to slow around him as he watched a figure emerge from the shadows outside. It was larger than any human or wolf Zephyr had ever seen, taller, more powerful, and encased in armor that shimmered with an otherworldly light. In its hand, it held a weapon that seemed to pulse with energy. Zephyr's mind raced as he tried to process what he was seeing. This was no ordinary intruder. He could feel the tension crackling in the air, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. The being took another step forward, its eyes locking onto Zephyr's position through the window. "Stay calm," Mira whispered behind him, her voice a soothing balm. But Zephyr knew there was little room for calm when faced with such an otherworldly threat. With a sudden burst of speed, the being leaped towards the compound, its momentum causing the wooden door to splinter and break as it crashed inside. The force of the impact sent Zephyr sprawling across the floor, his vision briefly obscured by dust and debris. As he scrambled to regain his feet, his eyes met those of the intruder. They were a piercing blue, seemingly able to see through him, peering into the deepest corners of his soul. For a moment, time seemed to freeze, and Zephyr felt as if he was staring at something beyond his comprehension. But then reality snapped back with a vengeance. The being moved swiftly, its movements fluid yet devastatingly precise. It raised its weapon, ready to strike, but before it could, another figure appeared beside Zephyr. It was Lyra, the fierce and protective leader of the lunar wolf girls. Her eyes were blazing with an ancient, primal fire. She stood protectively in front of Zephyr, her fur bristling as she growled fiercely at the intruder, her voice a low rumble that seemed to shake the very foundations of the shelter. The being paused, its weapon lowering slightly. He studied Lyra for a moment, a strange mix of curiosity and respect in its gaze. Zephyr could almost feel the tension between them as they sized each other up. "What are you?" Lyra snarled, her voice dripping with challenge. "What do you want?" The being's gaze shifted from Lyra to Zephyr, then back again. It was clear that it had a purpose here beyond mere destruction. "I seek the Guardians," it answered in a resonant tone, each word cutting through the air like a knife. "You are their protector, but you are not ready for what is coming." Zephyr felt a cold chill spread through him as the words sunk in. What did this being mean by guardians? Did it know something about his true purpose? The ants were seemed to lie in an unspeakable danger that loomed on the horizon. "Who are you?" Zephyr demanded, stepping forward despite Lyra's warning growl. He couldn't let fear paralyze him now. "What do you want from us?" The being remained silent for a moment, its eyes narrowing. Then, with a sudden movement, it drew a long, shimmering blade and pressed the tip to Zephyr's throat, the cold metal resting against his skin. The sharp edge of the weapon sent a jolt through him, sending chills down his spine. "You know nothing," it hissed, its voice low but intense. "But I will show you." Before Zephyr could react, the being vanished with a swirl of dark energy and a crackling of space itself. The sudden departure left the room in an eerie silence, broken only by the rapid breathing of Zephyr and Lyra. Lyra's eyes glowed fiercely as she turned to face Zephyr. "What was that?" she growled, her voice filled with a mixture of anger and concern. Zephyr shook his head, trying to gather his thoughts. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice shaky but determined. "But we can't stay here. We need to find out what this being meant by guardians." Mira stepped out of the shadows, her eyes wide with fear. "What's happening, Zephyr? Who are these guardians?" "Right now, we don't have time for questions," Lyra growled, her gaze flickering towards the broken door and the dark night beyond. "We need to get ready to move. Whatever is out there, it's not going to leave us alone." As if to prove her point, a low rumble began to emanate from outside the compound. It was a deep, growling sound that sent shivers down their spines. Something large and powerful was approaching. Its presence felt long before it was seen. Zephyr turned to face his companions, determination in his eyes. "We have to find out what these guardians are, and why they're being threatened. Until we do, we won't be safe." "But where do we start?" Mira asked, her voice trembling but with a newfound resolve. Zephyr's gaze hardened as he looked back at the broken door, then up towards the night sky. "We start by uncovering the secrets hidden within this ancient place. We have to trust that the answers are here." Lyra nodded, her wolf instincts coming to the forefront. "Then let's move. The night is still young, and the storm has just begun." With those words, the trio prepared to venture into the unknown, each step forward a testament to their determination. But as they moved to gather their supplies, a sudden shadow flickered across the walls of the shelter, like a warning from the darkness itself. The danger was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun, and deep within the compound's dusty archives and ancient artifacts lay secrets that could either save them or doom them all. The air inside the dusty archives was thick with the scent of old parchment and wood. Each step echoed ominously, and dust motes danced in the narrow rays of light that filtered through the cracked windows. Ilian paused before an ancient wooden door, carved with intricate symbols that seemed to pulse faintly under his flashlight's beam. "Is it really wise to be in here?" whispered Lyra, her eyes wide as she scanned the dark stacks surrounding them. "We shouldn't be risking ourselves like this." Ilian gave a grim nod, his fingers tracing the symbols. "We have no choice. There's nothing else left to try. If the artifacts can confirm our suspicions, then maybe we have a chance to stop what's coming." He pushed open the door, revealing another chamber filled with ancient scrolls and forgotten relics. At the center of this room stood a small, ornately decorated sarcophagus, its lid slightly ajar. Ilian's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the carved designa, symbol of immense power that had once been used to seal away a malevolent force. "We need to be careful," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper as she approached the sarcophagus cautiously. "If this is what I think it is, it could be dangerous." Ilian nodded, his eyes never leaving the sarcophagus. "That's why we need the other artifacts. Alone, they are just relics, but together, they could reveal the truth about our enemy and how to stop them." Together, they searched through piles of scrolls and dusty urns, careful not to disturb anything that might trigger some ancient curse or protective mechanism. Their hearts raced with a mixture of fear and hope as they finally uncovered what they sought: a golden amulet with a deep blue gemstone encased in what looked like an ancient map, and a silver dagger with runes etched along its handle. The amulet's gemstone pulsed faintly when they brought it near the sarcophagus, drawing both of them closer. Elian carefully opened the sarcophagus, his hand trembling as he lifted out a small, leather-bound book. The pages were yellowed and brittle, filled with detailed symbols and diagrams that seemed to be instructions for the artifacts. As Elian turned the pages, Lyra held the amulet up to the light, and the blue gemstone started to glow, illuminating the diagrams in the book. The runes on the dagger began to light up as well, their glow blending with that of the amulet's gem. "We need to combine them," said Elian, his voice filled with awe and fear. "But if we do, it might awaken whatever is sealed here." Lyra glanced at the sarcophagus, her eyes hardening with determination. "We have to trust in the legends and the power of these artifacts. If we don't act now, everything we know will be destroyed." With a deep breath, Elian closed the book and carefully placed it on a nearby pedestal, arranging the dagger and amulet around it. As they did so, a low hum began to emanate from the artifacts, and the sarcophagus lid lifted slightly on its own. Elian and Lyra exchanged nervous glances, but stepped closer as the lid rose fully, revealing a figure clothed in ancient, tattered robes. The being's eyes were closed, breathing shallowly, as if still bound by the sealing spell. "We need to unbind them," Elian whispered, his hand trembling as he reached for the dagger and began to trace the runes along its blade with the amulet's gemstone. Slowly, the hum of power grew louder, and a thick mist began to swirl around the figure in the sarcophagus. "Stand back," Lyra said urgently, her eyes never leaving the artifacts. "This isn't safe." But Elian couldn't stop now. With trembling hands, he traced the final rune, and the amulet's gemstone flared with a brilliant blue light, illuminating the room in an otherworldly glow. The figure in the sarcophagus stirred, its eyes snapping open to reveal eyes glowing with an intense red light. "Finally," the figure said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "You have released me." Elian and Lyra backed away as the figure rose from the sarcophagus, the mist dissipating around it. The being's eyes scanned the room, settling on Elian and Lyra with a malevolent glint. "I knew you'd come," the figure said, its voice dripping with contempt. "For so long, I've waited for this moment. Now, you will pay the price." Elian held up the book and the artifacts, his resolve solidifying in the face of the danger they faced. "We know what you are," he said firmly, "and we won't let you have your way." The being laughed, a sound that was harsh and cold. "You think these trinkets will stop me? They only made you powerful enough to bring me back. You should have left well enough alone." As the being moved towards them with an ominous grace, Elian and Lyra quickly backed up further into the chamber, the door closing behind them with a slam that echoed through the dusty stacks of scrolls. "We need to find another way to contain you," Lyra said, her hand reaching for a small vial she had taken from the archives earlier. It was filled with a mysterious fluid, supposedly one of the few things left that could neutralize such dark magic. Elian nodded, his grip tightening on the book. "We can't afford to let you loose again," he said resolutely. "Whatever it takes, we'll find a way to stop you." The being's eyes narrowed as it sensed their intentions. "You are brave, but foolish," it sneered. "Even now, you are playing into my hands. By freeing me, you have given me power over this world. I will destroy everything you hold dear and then crush your defiance." But Elian and Lyra didn't flinch. They knew the stakes were high, and their resolve only strengthened as they faced the being. With their artifacts in hand, and the ancient knowledge of the book guiding them, they were determined to stand against the dark force and protect what was left of their world. As the battle loomed before them, both of them could only hope that the secrets hidden within these dusty archives would be enough to turn the tide of this final, desperate fight. As the battle loomed before them, both of them could only hope that the secrets hidden within these dusty archives would be enough to turn the tide of this final, desperate fight. Human protagonist Alex had found the ancient manuscripts tucked away in a forgotten section of the library, and he carefully handed each one over to Dreva, the dragon woman with whom he had forged an unlikely alliance. Dreva's eyes gleamed as she unfurled each page, her scales catching the dim light of the room. The air was thick with dust and anticipation. Each line of ancient script seemed to pulse with hidden power, whispering secrets that echoed in the chambers of Alex's mind too. As they read together, a strange, almost telepathic connection developed between them. Their minds moved through the text as if it were a shared dream, each revelation deepening their bond. "Look at this," Dreva said, her voice barely above a whisper. The ancients spoke of a hidden fortress, a place where they kept the ultimate weapon capable of destroying both dragons and humans. Alex's heart pounded in his chest. "Are you serious? We've been searching for months, and now this could be it." Dreva nodded grimly. "But we must be careful. The fortress is guarded by powerful creatures. We need to understand what this weapon is before we risk our lives." They continued reading, their eyes flicking back and forth over the parchment, tracing out diagrams of the structure and its defenses. As they read on, a map began to take shape in their minds. Dreva's wings brushed against the pages, her claws skimming across the sketches with a practiced ease. "It says here that the weapon is called the Shatterer. It can shatter anything, even the fabric of reality itself." Alex felt his pulse quicken. "We have to find it. We can stop this war by any means necessary." "But at what cost?" Dreva asked, her eyes reflecting a mix of determination and trepidation. "If it shatters everything, including us, either we face the consequences, or we accept defeat," Alex retorted firmly. Dreva sighed, her gaze turning toward the window where shadows began to creep into the library as night fell. "This weapon might be our only hope, but it's not just about finding it. We must also prepare for the backlash. Shatterer could cause chaos on a scale we can't even comprehend." Alex nodded, swallowing hard. "We need allies, more people who can understand these texts, who can help us translate and plan. We can't do this alone." With a firm nod, Dreva agreed. "We'll start with the remaining scholars from your world and my clan. But be prepared, our search will be noticed by other factions too. They will want the Shatterer for themselves, and they might stop at nothing to claim it first." As the night deepened, the room was filled with the sound of their rapid breathing and the rustling of pages. Each turn of the manuscript felt like a gamble. Each secret revealed an edge that could tilt the battle in their favor or plunge them into an abyss of destruction. Days turned into weeks as they worked tirelessly to decipher the cryptic texts. Dreva had never let down her guard, her instincts keen and ready for any threat lurking in the shadows. Alex too had grown sharper, his sense of urgency mirrored in his every move. They assembled a small group of scholars dedicated to understanding the weapon, each member bringing unique perspectives from their respective worlds. "Tell me again about the defenses," Dreva said one night, her voice echoing off the stone walls as they huddled around a table littered with maps and blueprints. "The fortress is said to be encircled by a labyrinth of illusions and traps," Alex replied, his fingers tracing out the winding paths. "The ancient texts describe it as a maze that tests both mind and body." Dreva's eyes narrowed as she studied the diagrams. "We need someone who knows these illusions intimately, someone who can navigate them without stumbling into a trap." Alex sighed deeply. "I think I know someone who might be able to help me, old Ment, or Marcus. He used to specialize in deciphering and manipulating ancient constructs like this." "Bring him with you," Dreva said decisively. We need every advantage we can get. Marcus proved to be a pivotal piece in their puzzle, his knowledge of the fortress and its defenses invaluable. As they planned, however, tension grew among their group. Not all were convinced that they should risk so much for a weapon of such destructive power. Is it worth it? Questioned one scholar, her voice wavering. We could lose everything. Alex's resolve hardened at this doubt. We have to try. If we don't act now, the war will escalate beyond our control. But as they prepared to leave the library for the final push towards the fortress, a chilling realization dawned on Dreva. There's something else, she whispered, her eyes darting around nervously. What is it? Alex asked urgently. A faction of dragon elders has been working against us, Dreva confessed. They've learned about our plans and are trying to sabotage us. Alex's heart clenched. Who? Dreva named several key figures who had always seemed sympathetic, but were now revealed to be double agents. As they spoke, the room was suddenly filled with the sound of approaching footsteps. Alex's heart raced as he pulled out his weapon, ready for any attack. But it wasn't an enemy who burst through the door, but a messenger from Marcus, bearing urgent news. The fortress was being reinforced by unknown forces, and time was running out. We have to move quickly, Marcus said, his voice tight with worry. The enemy knows our plans now, and they are preparing for us. Alex nodded grimly, clenching the map in his hands. Then we have to find a new way in. We need a diversion. Dreva considered this carefully, her mind whirring. We can't just storm the place outright. There must be another route detailed in these texts somewhere. As they scoured through the ancient manuscripts once more, a glimmer of hope emerged from the shadows. A hidden path was mentioned, one that could bypass the outer defenses if approached from an unexpected direction. Here, Alex said, his finger tracing a specific line on the map. It's perilous, but it might be our only chance. Dreva studied the route closely, her expression tightening with doubt. This path is treacherous. It requires us to navigate through ancient ruins that are said to house powerful guardians and traps from the past. But it's our best shot, Alex argued. We can't let the enemy have this weapon. If it falls into their hands, the consequences will be catastrophic. Their alliance was tested anew in these moments of vulnerability. Each step they took felt like a gamble, with the fate of two worlds hanging in the balance. Dreva's wings shuddered as she considered the risks, her loyalty and dedication to Alex becoming a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. We can do this, she said finally, her voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of fear. Together, as they prepared for their perilous journey through the hidden path, the weight of responsibility settled heavily on both of them. They knew that the war had reached its climax, and the stakes were higher than ever before. The day of departure dawned cold and clear, with an eerie stillness hanging in the air. Alex and Dreva stood at the edge of the ancient ruins, where the path to the fortress began. Their small group of scholars, now reduced to those most loyal and capable, waited anxiously behind them. The fortress loomed on the horizon, its walls gleaming with an ominous light, as if mocking their efforts. I can't believe we're actually doing this, Alex murmured, his voice barely audible over the rustling of leaves in the wind. Dreva turned to him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of steel and sorrow. For all of our worlds, it's what we must do. Marcus stepped forward, his demeanor calm but resolute. Let's move now while the enemy is unprepared. Time for hesitation has passed. With a nod of agreement, they set off into the heart of the ruins. Each step was fraught with tension and danger, the ancient stones beneath their feet echoing the weight of centuries of forgotten battles. As they progressed deeper, the path narrowed, winding through chambers filled with spectral echoes and traps designed to ensnare the unwary. It's starting now, Alex said grimly, as one such trap, a sudden burst of blinding light, triggered. They moved quickly past it, each member of their group relying on the others for support. Stay focused, Dreva warned, her wings brushing against the walls as she navigated. These traps are designed to break your concentration. Yet despite their vigilance, another trap caught one of their scholars off guard, a sudden spike of heat searing through the air as it triggered. The scholar stumbled back, coughing and clutching at his arm, where a burn mark had appeared. "Are you okay?" Alex asked urgently, helping him up. "Ill manage," the scholar said grimly, determination lighting in his eyes. The remaining members of their group continued with renewed resolve, each moment bringing them closer to the heart of danger. The ruins grew more oppressive, the walls closing in as if to suffocate any hope of escape. Driva's wings strained against the tight confines, her scales flashing a warning to the others as she pushed forward. "This isn't the only trap," Marcus warned, his voice sharp and clear. "There are beings guarding this path. We must be ready for them." Suddenly, the air grew thick with the scent of ozone as a spectral guardian emerged from the shadows. Its form was indistinct, but its intent was unmistakable. Driva's eyes flared with an inner fire, her gaze meeting Alex in unspoken understanding. "Let me take care of this," she said softly, her wings spreading wide as she stepped forward. In a swift, fluid motion, she unleashed a burst of energy that shattered the guardian into ethereal fragments. "We have to keep moving," Driva urged, turning back towards the path as the rest of their group hurried to catch up. As they pressed on, the ruins opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows. In the center stood the fortress gate, pulsating with a muted energy that seemed to draw them closer. The air hummed with tension, and Alex could feel the eyes of unseen forces watching their every move. "We're close," Driva whispered, her voice barely audible. "But this is where it gets difficult." The gate loomed before them, a barrier both physical and metaphysical. It was inscribed with ancient runes that pulsed with a dark, swirling power. Alex felt the weight of each step, the burden of their mission bearing down on him. "We can't let these defenses stop us," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the trembling in his hands. Driva nodded, her eyes scanning the runes. "This gate responds to a certain frequency. We need someone with knowledge of these constructs." Marcus stepped forward once more, his eyes narrowing as he studied the inscriptions. "I think I can do this," he said quietly, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and determination. With a deep breath, Marcus placed his hand on the gate, feeling each energy coursing through it. His fingers traced out the complex patterns, his mind working to decipher the intricate code. The air crackled around him as he spoke in an ancient tongue, his words weaving into the fabric of the gate itself. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, at first, the runes began to shift and glow with a soft light. As Marcus continued, the energy grew stronger, forming a shimmering portal before them. "We're through," Marcus said, his voice trembling slightly. "But it won't hold for long. We have to move quickly." The group surged forward, their hearts pounding as they rushed through the opening, the ancient constructs collapsing behind them in a shower of sparks. Inside, the fortress was a maze of twisting corridors and hidden chambers, each step bringing them closer to the heart of danger. The air was thick with tension, and Alex could feel the eyes of unseen guardians watching their every move. "This is it," Driva said softly as they approached the final chamber where the Shatterer was said to be housed. "Be ready for anything." The door before them was massive, adorned with intricate carvings that pulsed with an eerie light. As Alex and Driva pushed it open, a burst of energy exploded outward, the force of it sending them stumbling back. Inside, the chamber was filled with ancient machinery and devices, each one humming with latent power. "In the center," Driva said, her voice barely more than a whisper as she pointed to a pedestal in the room's heart. Upon it rested a crystal, its surface gleaming with an inner light that seemed to contain the essence of their quest. "This is the Shatterer," Alex breathed, his hand reaching out towards it almost involuntarily. The crystal pulsed in response, a thread of energy connecting them. "It's dangerous," Dreva said solemnly, her eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and trepidation. Power it holds could tear apart the fabric of reality itself. But as they stood there, the weight of their mission becoming overwhelming, another presence was suddenly felt in the chamber. From the shadows emerged figures clad in dark armor, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. "Our enemies," Alex said grimly, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. "We can't let them take the Shatterer," Dreva said firmly, her wings unfurling as she prepared to defend it. Tension was almost palpable as the two groups faced off, each side knowing that this confrontation would decide the fate of their worlds. The chamber echoed with the sound of clashing weapons and the fierce determination of warriors willing to risk everything for victory. Every move they made was calculated, every blow delivered with a resolve born from a shared desire to end the war once and for all. As the battle raged on, Alex and Dreva found themselves at the center of it all, their connection growing stronger with each passing moment. The scholars who had joined them fell one by one, their sacrifices forming a shield around the Shatterer. Yet even as they fought, a deeper truth began to unravel before them. "This isn't just about the war," Alex said between breaths, his eyes reflecting an inner clarity as he struck another enemy. "It's about our worlds and who we are." Dreva nodded, her wings flaring with each powerful strike. "We're more than soldiers. We have a chance to change this reality." The enemies pressed on relentlessly, their numbers seemingly endless. Yet each victory brought them closer to the heart of the conflict, where the true stakes lay. "We can't let them take it," Alex said firmly, his gaze locked on the Shatterer as he fought his way towards it. "This weapon could end everything." Driva's wings beat with renewed determination, her scales glinting under the flickering light. "Then we must protect it at all costs." Their path was fraught with peril, each step bringing them closer to the ultimate battle. The walls of the fortress seemed to close in around them, the echoes of past battles ringing through the corridors. And yet, amidst the chaos, a sense of unity was emerging between Alex and Dreva, their connection growing stronger with each passing moment. The chamber where the Shatterer rested pulsed with raw power as the final confrontation loomed before them. The enemy pressed on relentlessly, their dark armor glinting under the flickering light, their intent clear to claim the weapon and end the war by force. "We can't let them take it," Alex said fiercely, his eyes reflecting a deep conviction. "It's our only hope." Dreva nodded, her wings flaring with a new intensity as she stepped forward. "We'll protect it with everything we have." As they fought their way through the final wave of enemies, each blow and parry felt like a gamble. The air crackled with tension, the room filled with the echoes of clashing swords and the desperate cries of fallen comrades. Yet amidst the chaos, there was an unspoken understanding between Alex and Dreva, a connection that transcended the physical battle. Suddenly, as the last of their enemies fell, a figure stepped forward from the shadows, a dragon elder whose allegiance had always been uncertain. His eyes met Alex with a glint of malice. "You've underestimated me," the elder hissed, his wings unfurling in preparation for an attack. "The Shatterer is mine." But as he lunged, Dreva was there first, intercepting his blow with a swift, powerful strike that sent him stumbling back. Her eyes met Alex once more, and in that moment of shared understanding, they moved as one, their actions choreographed by years of silent communication. "We won't let you have it," Dreva said fiercely, her wings flaring with renewed strength as she faced down the elder. "Not now." The elder's eyes blazed with fury, his wings spreading wide as he prepared to unleash a devastating attack. Yet Alex was already moving, his blade flashing in the dim light as he intercepted the elder's strike with a precision born of years of training. "Enough," Alex said firmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "This ends now." With a final, decisive strike, they subdued the elder, his wings collapsing as he fell to the ground, defeated. The room was silent for a moment, the echoes of battle fading into an uneasy stillness. But amidst this moment of victory, a new realization dawned on Alex and Dreva. "We can't just leave it here," Alex said quietly, his eyes reflecting a deep concern as he turned towards the Shatterer. "We need to use it responsibly." Dreva's wings fluttered softly, her scales shimmering in the dim light as she nodded in agreement. "But who can control such power? Who can ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands?" Their thoughts were interrupted by a sudden burst of energy from the Shatterer itself, its crystal surface glowing with an intense light that seemed to pulse with a chaotic rhythm. The air around them hummed with an eerie vibrancy as the weapon began to assert its own will. "Something's happening," Alex said urgently, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and apprehension as he approached the pedestal. "We need to understand what it wants." Dreva moved beside him, her wings brushing against the air as she watched the crystal intently. "It feels like it's trying to communicate." The Shatterer pulsed once more, a burst of energy shooting out and forming a shimmering portal before them. Through it, they could see glimpses of other realities, places both familiar and strange. Their minds suddenly flooded with visions of past and future conflicts. "We're being called," Alex said in wonder as he stepped closer to the portal. "It wants us to go somewhere." Dreva's eyes gleamed with a fierce determination as she nodded. "This could be our chance to truly end this war once and for all." The air around them grew thicker, the hum of power intensifying as they prepared to step through the portal. Yet, amidst this moment of decision, a final twist loomed on the horizon. As they reached out to the Shatterer, a sudden burst of light erupted from the Elder's body where he lay defeated. His eyes snapped open, a cold fire burning within them as he rose from the ground with an unnatural grace. "I am not yet vanquished," the Elder hissed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I will take this weapon and rule over all." With a swift, powerful movement, he grabbed the Shatterer from its pedestal, his fingers grasping the crystal tightly. The portal flared once more as the Shatterer's energy surged through him, its power transforming his very essence. "No!" Alex shouted, lunging forward in a desperate attempt to reclaim the weapon. But it was too late. The Elder's wings spread wide, and with a burst of blinding light, he disappeared into the portal, the Shatterer clutched tightly in his grasp. The room was plunged into silence as the light faded, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Alex and Dreva stood there, their eyes locked on each other in a moment of shared shock and determination. "We have to follow him," Alex said firmly, his voice filled with resolve. "We can't let him wield that power." Dreva nodded, her wings flaring as she prepared to take flight. "Then we must move quickly. Time is running out." As they turned towards the portal, a final image flashed before their eyes, a vision of a future where the Shatterer's power would lead to untold destruction and chaos. Yet amidst this dark vision, there was also a glimmer of hope, a chance to change the course of events. "We can still end this war," Alex said, his voice firm as he stepped towards the portal. Together, Dreva's wings flared once more, their connection stronger than ever as they embraced the unknown. With a final look at each other, they stepped through the shimmering light, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The light enveloped them, swirling around their forms like a vortex of starlight and nebulae. As they emerged on the other side, the air was thick with anticipation and the weight of unseen dangers. The landscape stretched out before them, a vast, barren expanse dotted with twisted metal structures that seemed to be remnants of some ancient war. The sky above was a deep, inky black, punctuated by the occasional flicker of a distant star. "Are you ready?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rush of wind. He nodded, though his heart pounded in his chest. "As I'll ever be." They walked forward together, their footsteps echoing softly against the cold metal terrain. Each step felt heavier, laden with the burden of their shared fate. It was a place where no human had dared to tread, and yet here they were, drawn by an unseen force that compelled them to face what might lay at the heart of this desolate land. The air grew colder as they neared the heart of the ruins, an ancient temple or fortress that stood tall amidst the desolation. It was a structure unlike any other, built with strange materials and alien technology that hummed softly under its surface. The entrance loomed ominously ahead, a dark archway beckoning them deeper into the unknown. They paused before it, looking at each other once more. His eyes, full of determination and a hint of something deeper, met hers. Her gaze was steady, yet there was a flicker of vulnerability that only he could see, those moments where she allowed herself to be truly human, despite her extraordinary nature. "Let's do this," he said softly, reaching out to touch her hand briefly, their fingers intertwining for an instant before separating again. She nodded, the gesture small yet powerful, and together they stepped through the entrance, into a chamber filled with strange artifacts and glowing symbols that pulsed with an eerie energy. The room was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows and adorned with intricate carvings depicting scenes of celestial beings and mythical battles. In the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested an object that seemed to draw all eye, something both beautiful and terrifying, like a beacon of hope and doom. As they approached the pedestal, an ancient language whispered through the air, a song of power and prophecy. The artifact on the pedestal began to glow softly, casting long shadows that danced around them. It was as if the very walls were watching, waiting for their decision. She reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing against the cool surface of the artifact. An electric current seemed to pass through her, making her gasp and pull back slightly. "It's calling us," she said, more to herself than to him. He placed his hand over hers, a silent offering of support. The connection between them was palpable now, each touch sending a shiver down their spines. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, the weight of their decision hanging heavily in the air. Finally, she stepped closer, her other hand joining the first. With a deep breath, she lifted the artifact off its pedestal, feeling a surge of energy coursing through her veins. The air around them shimmered with latent power, and the ancient language grew louder, more urgent. "Go ahead," he urged softly, his voice full of unspoken encouragement. She closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the knowledge and power that flowed through her. Then, opening them, she turned to him, her eyes filled with resolve yet also a hint of sadness. "We do this together," she whispered, her breath barely audible. He nodded, his own heart heavy with an emotion he couldn't fully name, a blend of fear, determination, and something deeper that spoke of their bond. Together, they advanced further into the temple, the artifact held between them as if it were a shared burden, a symbol of the path they were about to take. Each step deeper into the ruins felt like a journey through time itself. The air grew colder still, and strange symbols etched on walls seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. They encountered puzzles and trials that tested not just their physical prowess, but their mental and emotional strength as well. Through every challenge, they relied on each other, their bond tightening even as the unknown loomed larger. It was in a chamber where the walls seemed to close in, lined with runes that seemed to shift and whisper secrets, that the tension reached its peak. The artifact glowed fiercely now, almost blindingly bright. It was clear what lay ahead. They had come to face something greater than themselves, something that would challenge not just their bodies, but their very souls. She turned to him again, her gaze piercing through the layers of uncertainty. "This is where our true test begins," she murmured, her voice low and intense. He nodded, his hand finding hers once more. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." In that moment, despite the looming dangers and the unknowns ahead, there was a profound sense of peace between them. It wasn't just about surviving what was to come. It was about being there for each other, about having found something rare in this world, a connection that transcended everything. As if sensing their silent agreement, the artifact pulsed one last time, its glow fading slightly before stabilizing. Before them, a portal opened, shimmering with the promise of whatever lay beyond. They stepped forward together, fingers intertwined, ready to step into the unknown. It was then, as they stood on the precipice of their greatest challenge, that she reached out, her hand finding his cheek in a gentle touch. Her breath, warm and sweet, brushed against his ear as she whispered, "No matter what happens next, remember, you gave me something no one else ever could." He looked into her eyes, seeing all the emotions that ran through her: vulnerability, strength, love. The moment felt charged with possibility and sorrow, a bittersweet echo of everything they had shared. They stepped through the portal together, fingers still entwined, leaving behind the desolate landscape and entering into what awaited them. But as they vanished into the light, one last glance was exchanged, a look that spoke volumes of unspoken promises and untold futures. The final line hung in the air, short yet powerful together. The final line hung in the air, short yet powerful together. Echoes of agreement followed, like a tidal wave that had been building for so long, now cresting and sweeping over them all with undeniable force. Each person present felt the weight of those two words, a collective promise born from shared struggle and mutual understanding. It was more than just an agreement, it was a declaration of unity. Rain turned towards her companions, locking eyes with each in turn. The warmth in their gazes reaffirmed what they had all silently acknowledged: none of them could have survived this journey alone. But together, they were unbreakable. They faced the daunting task ahead not merely as individuals, but as a team bound by both necessity and camaraderie. "We leave at first light," Rain declared, her voice steady despite the myriad emotions swirling inside her. "There's still much to do before we reach our destination." A murmur of preparation began, as each person in the room quietly went about their business. Supplies needed to be gathered, strategies formulated, and wounds tended. But beneath the flurry of activity lay an undercurrent of newfound strength. Something intangible yet unmistakable. Morgan nodded, pushing back from where he had been sitting on one of the stone benches lining the walls. His gaze fell upon Rain's bandaged arm, evidence of a recent injury that had brought them together in the first place. "You rest," he offered gently, a rare display of vulnerability in his eyes. "I'll see to preparations." Rain accepted his offer without hesitation, allowing him to take charge of immediate logistics while she focused on her own responsibilities. Over in one corner of the room, others had already begun sorting through their belongings, identifying what would be essential for the journey ahead. It was a sobering process. Space was limited, and carrying too much could prove burdensome or even dangerous. Meanwhile, Rain made her way to the map room, where she could properly review their route and plan accordingly. The map was extensive, its ink trails winding across parchment in intricate detail. As she studied it, her mind raced with possibilities and potential challenges. This journey would be fraught with danger-willed terrain, unforgiving climates, and adversaries who would doubtlessly try to thwart their progress. Yet for every obstacle that came to mind, Rain saw a solution. Her resolve hardened with each passing moment. She would not falter now. They had too much at stake. The map stretched out before her like a winding river, and she felt as though she stood at its Rain, Liam, Julie, Kateri, Yona, Rain.